Hello, Fáilte Seach, and welcome to yet another edition of the Shortgrass, your Kildare Nationalist Sports podcast. I'm Pat Costello, and with me, as usual, are the three wise men of sport in Kildare: Ger McNally, Richard Commins, and Tommy O'Connell. Lads, we have a packed programme again this week. When will we ever not have a packed programme? Let's start with the big one, of course. It's the UPMC Senior Hurling Championship Final, a repeat of last year, Naas versus Maynooth in Seagull St. Conleth's Park at 3:30 on this Sunday. A big game. Lads, are we saying it's a repeat of last year as well as a repeat of the teams? Tommy, what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of, it is hard to look any other way. I mean, we could try pick the bones out of it for an hour on a preview, but it will be a huge shock, obviously, if anything other than a Naas win happens. I mean, in fairness, there was some really good previews in the paper as well. Richard had one this week where, you know, he spoke about the value that Maynooth have in the likes of Colin McCabe and Tom Power coming in and taking over for the injured David Qualter. Like, you'd wonder how a Maynooth team would fare this year with David Qualter and a Tom Power this year, with the experience he's after getting in the championship and the form that he's after bringing. Jeez, like, I mean, it happens so many times in sport where you'd wonder, these lads that are injured, what value they would add to a team. But look at the season Qualter's after having, and now they're missing him, but they're still in the final. And they're there on merit. You know, they got through, obviously they got into that losers group after losing the Celbridge, but like, you know, they've picked up some decent wins and some good performances. Listening to the interview as well, like, the manager knows all about it. He knows what they're up against. But you have to lose finals.
Richard, are we a bit disingenuous on Maynooth? You know, as Tommy says, they're in a final, that they're on merit. It's quite a young team. They would have learned from last year, and have a very experienced manager as well.
Yeah, I think I'd like to think they're improving, and I'd like to think they can get closer than they did last year. They've got the two forwards in sync as well, I think, for the first time in a few years, just to add to the fact they've, you know, Tom Power coming through. Oren Byrne is another one I was very impressed with in the semi-final at midfield. Like, Kieran Flanagan had a relatively quiet day for him, but Oren Byrne really took it on for midfield against our Rogue. So, like, they've got a lot about them. Possibly more so than last year, and, you know, yes, Qualter is gone, but, you know, they've stepped up from an attacking perspective. I think the bigger problem is probably the defensive side for Maynooth. I was looking at the scoring differential of the two teams, and unfortunately added up Naas's goals wrong in the paper. Sorry, Ger. I've been corrected on that through the wires since. But
one accountant do you have in the group?
I know, yeah. Good job. We got this to fall back on for a bit of pocket money. But even still, like, Naas have conceded only 2 goals in all their games so far, whereas Maynooth have conceded 11. And in total, including points, Maynooth have conceded 116 compared to 59 for Naas. So, you know, we've spoken a lot about Maynooth's kind of attacking options that they've brought in with Qualter gone, but at the back, I'd worry about them. And, you know, Brian Byrne is playing really, really well for Naas again in that kind of playmaker role up front. He's very hard to nail down. And then you've got Jack with 5 goals from play already, I think, this season, if I remember right. So, and then Fionn Maher coming in as well, someone who's had great promise from an underage perspective. So I suppose that's a long-winded way of saying I still really fancy Naas, despite all their own injuries and potential absences. I think they've shown enough to suggest they're roaring hot favourites for a reason. But I'd love to see Maynooth come a lot closer, at least, than they have done in the previous 2 finals they've been in.
Yeah, but Ger, it's too simplistic to say that if Maynooth can stop early goals by Naas, that could make things a lot, I suppose, a lot closer, if not very, very close.
Yeah, well, look at from Maynooth's point of view, that is absolutely what they have to do. They have to try and stay in the game, and I suppose break it down to blocks, really, and you know, make sure they don't concede anything significant in the first 10 minutes, and try to get to the 20-minute mark, get to half time, and half time, you know, be within a touching distance at least, and then if they go into the final 15, 10 minutes, still within 4 or 5 points, then they're within a chance and they have an opportunity to put a bit of pressure on. But of course, that's very easy to say, and that's a very simplistic game plan because they're up against an absolutely awesome side. And when you think about Naas, you think about all their scoring potential, and we've talked endlessly about the likes of Jack Sheridan and all those around them as well. They're an outstanding side. But just looking back through the 6 finals that they've won in the last 6 years, in 2019 against Kildare, they conceded 12 points. 2020 against Confey, they conceded 1-9. 21 against Stelbridge, they conceded 1-13, which is the most they conceded in this run of finals. 22 against Maynooth, they conceded 23 against Kildare, they conceded 11, and last year against Maynooth again, they conceded 12 points. So when you're only conceding that level of scores in a very competitive game, I mean, it gives you an outstanding opportunity to win a match. So especially when they have the talent up front. So I mean, they're just such a hard side to break down. And even as one of the lads said there, that they are missing some of their key men. James Burke is a massive loss.
Yeah.
Richie Hogan, unfortunately, I think has suffered or even a new injury when he was just getting back to fitness after an injury that he picked up at the end of the inter-county season. So yeah, they are down a couple of players, but they're strength.
Conan Bourne, another one.
Conan Bourne, I keep forgetting him.
Yeah,
he's just such a huge player. He would be absolutely key. And the thing with Conan Bourne, if he was available, then it probably would release Keane Bourne into a more attacking role then as well, which they're kind of nearly down 2 players and kind of similar enough to the way that Kildare were this year. But Keane slotted so seamlessly into centre back that you almost forget that as well. I mean, he's such an outstanding.
That seems to be his best position now, doesn't it, Ger? Though.
Well, that's it. Back. Yeah, and I mean, often how many times down through the years have you seen it that an injury has forced a positional change, and all of a sudden then the player moving into that position suddenly looks right at home. And yeah, Keane, we probably will be sitting there to talk about players of the year and stuff for Kildare later in the year. He certainly will feature very strongly in that, I would imagine, and obviously he's just picked up at that where he's left off when he's come back to Naas as well. So yeah, look, at the talent that ranks is massive, and Maynooth have an absolutely huge task. 3 years ago in 22, they made a real game, but actually, and even 8 points, probably slightly fattered Naas that day. I think it was even closer than that, but last year, yeah, Naas were by far the better side, and Maynooth will hope to put in a much better performance than that.
And Richard, we've been very lucky with the hurling finals this year, particularly the Senior B final 2 weeks ago now at this stage between Clare and Leeds Club. That was an outstanding game. So could we get the same on Sunday?
Well, I hope so. In a way, I haven't looked at the weather forecast. Don't know if you guys have.
Good. Is
it good? Yeah, that's probably not good for Maynooth, I'd say, potentially. Again, with that nice forward line and the goals they've been scoring, maybe we needed a Storm Amy to make it a bit closer. But I'd like to think Maynooth will get well under 10 points, but that wouldn't be my prediction based on everything I've seen, as much as I'd like to see it. But it could be a good game. Could well be a good game. If Maynooth really, like Colin McKay was in inspired form in the semi-final, like if he can replicate that, if Kieran Flanagan can maybe step it up a little bit from where he was against Rogue, and if Oren Byrne can continue the form he had against Rogue as well, then the experience of the forward. So there's plenty about Maynooth, but I just think there's so much has to go right for them, for them to really put Naas to the pin of their collars. So I'd still see Naas probably at around 10 points of a margin.
Tommy, would you differ in any sort of way?
Not particularly, no. Maynooth I know I brought this up last week, and I don't want it to come across that simplistic way of looking at it, but it's something that you have to highlight. So Maynooth have a bigger spread of scores across the championship. They have more lads getting on the scoreboard, and they have more scores than Naas on the top scorer charts. When I say top, that's in the top 16. But how do you stop Jack Sheridan? Because if you double up on him, if you triple up on him, you're leaving space elsewhere, and Naas can punish you from all over the field. But at the same time, I think you have to focus heavily on stopping Jack getting in around you. You can keep Jack out the field, out to the wings, stuck in the corner. Like Jack could be in the corner with 3 Maynooth men around him, and suddenly he'll be gone. He's that good. He'll weasel his way through you. He'll get through, and if he's anywhere near the goals, you're in bother. So what do? Do you cover space? Do you just take the chance that you want to cover him and let the other lads have the ball? You probably can't do that either. But if Maynooth can just stop that goal threat from Jack, just that one little win, even by half time, if they've curbed him a little bit and they're winning the 50-50s out the field, which can happen, and it happened at times last year in the final as well. Maynooth suddenly won a few 50-50s in the first half. The crowd started roaring. It was good old crack because they were giving it to them for a while. But it can turn in an instant with this Naas team. Yeah. So I would imagine that this Naas team are already looking at Mount Leinster Rangers in Carlow at the start of November. They'll say they're not.
Tom Miley would never say that.
They're big outsiders for the Leinster Championship as well. So if anybody's a betting man, might be worth sticking a few euro on them.
So that's 2 for Naas. Ger, are you 3?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you want to be staunch Maynooth man, I think, to suggest otherwise, and even the most staunch of Maynooth man will probably find it hard to make an argument. Yeah, look, we just hope that Maynooth can make a proper game of it and make it competitive and play to their best ability. That's the big thing for any side in the final. So yeah, but even if they do that, it's still probably unlikely to be good enough, unfortunately, against this outstanding Naas side. And we shouldn't be probably blasé about how good Naas are, because I mean, Naas, it took them a long time to get over that hurdle. They had a big gap there before they won their first title of kind of this era back in 2019. And yeah, like, they're just an outstanding team. They've been the standard bearers for Kildare Hurling, and it's going to take an unbelievable performance from Maynooth to stop them from making it 7 in a row.
So I think it would be good for Kildare Hurling as well if Maynooth could get closer, because they're the one team that you would think have got the resources and youngsters coming through that could challenge Naas over coming years. So I'd hate to see them really get a big knockback. It'd be
good for Naas as well, Richard.
Progress. Good for Naas as well. Yeah, great point. Yeah.
If Naas are to come out of this final, I guarantee if Naas come out of this final after getting a real battle off Maynooth, they'll be very, very happy with that, rather than limping down to Carlow to play Mount Leinster Rangers. It's just that's what we're hoping for as fans as well, obviously.
Absolutely. So that's Tommy, that's Ger, and that's Richard going for Naas. So that means Maynooth will win. Anyway, we hope that it will be a great final. We're looking forward to it. It's the UPMC Kildare Senior Hurling Championship final between Naas and Maynooth. That's at 3:30 on Sunday in Cedarville St. Conleth's Park. Matty Redmond, the experienced Matty Redmond, a very good referee. He's the man in the middle for that one. And that will be preceded at 1:15 with the Senior Hurling B, it's a future ticketing minor Hurling B Championship final. That one is between Clare and Aero Corraquail. Looking forward to that one. That should be a good one as well, because some good underage players in both Clare and Aero Corraquail. So we're looking forward to a big Sunday of hurling in Cedarville St. Conleth's Park. And just before we leave hurling, can we pay tribute to 2 men who have died in the past week or so? Noel O'Sullivan, who of course originally from Scariff, a man who was involved with Confey. He was the principal of Confey College for quite a while. He helped with Confey GAA for quite a while as well. He was also involved with Ardclough and indeed with Selbridge. But in Leinster, he was heavily involved in the coaching side of things. I said in a tribute on Clubber that wherever there was a hurling in Kildare, or even indeed on a provincial basis, then Noel's fingerprints were on it, and he died suddenly there last week. So we extend our sympathy to all his family, and indeed to Jody Murphy. We noticed that Lisa put up a tribute there to Jody Murphy, who was heavily involved in hurling in Kildare in the past number of years as well. So we extend our sympathy to both the O'Sullivan and Murphy families, and indeed all their clubs as well. So just to finish off the hurling, I think it's nice to pay tribute to people who have given so much to hurling in Kildare when it wasn't easy to do so. All right. Let's move on then to a review of last weekend, and what a super weekend of football we had. Let's start off with the senior football semi-finals. They were on Sunday in Cedarville St. Conleth's Park. Naas 120, Selbridge 13 points. Referee there was Billy O'Connell. Athy 214, Sarsfield 213. Referee Paddy McDermott. 2 different sort of games. Naas in control, Athy and Sarsfield right down to the wire. Jerry, your take on Naas and Selbridge?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose us in the media and kind of observers, we've pinpointed these 4 teams. It didn't take a genius to do that. Obviously, they were the same Final Four last year, but we expected kind of 2, really rip-roaring encounters. And unfortunately, from a Selbridge point of view, we had 3 sides on Sunday who played to that sort of level, but Selbridge just never got there, and certainly in the second half they didn't. They were really disappointing in the second half, and as much as you have to give credit to Naas, because of course they did their work superbly well, and they limited Selbridge to an awful lot of what they were able to do. But from a Selbridge point of view, it's going to be a long winter for them, just wondering how things went so wrong for them on what was a huge stage and was their biggest game of the year, because everything that they've done up to this point was geared towards what was going to happen in a semi-final and then hopefully a final from their point of view. But yeah, it just didn't work out, and in the end, Naas were superb. I thought Alex Byrne obviously was excellent. His first half goal just came at a time just when Selwood were maybe just finding the only bit of momentum they really found in the game. They just managed to work their way into a 2-point lead, but Naas got a magnificent goal, and it was a beautiful finish by Alex Byrne, and just a continuation from his outstanding season. But I thought the best player on the pitch was Paddy McDermott, who
again.
Yeah. But you think back to the county season, he just couldn't get a run of games at all, and he was struggling even at times to make the matchday squad for Kildare under Brian Flanagan this year. But yeah, he's had an excellent club season, and this was a really good performance, because when you look at it, one of the strong points really on the Selwood side would be their wing backs and wing forwards. They have 4 really pacey players there, for outstanding talents. Dino Donoghue obviously scored a hat-trick of goals in the previous round. Kevin Flynn was brilliant. Tony Archibald was probably actually Selwood's best player on the day, I thought. But even of those 4, the similar type of player, Paddy McDermott was head and shoulders above everybody on the pitch. He was just so involved in everything, so direct, so incisive, and just he knew exactly what he wanted to do when he got on the ball. Sometimes I suppose any of these players who like to go on these wandering runs and sometimes end up going down cul-de-sacs, but there was nothing like that from Paddy on Sunday. He was just he was so decisive in what he wanted to do, and he was just pulling the strings for Naas. And yeah, in the end, it was quite a comfortable win, and it was far from what we expected to see. Naas winning by 10 points in the end was definitely not what I had on my scorecard going into the game anyway.
Yeah, and Richard, Athy and Sarsfield, that one went to the wire, and it wouldn't have been a surprise if it had gone to extra time. But last minute point and a last minute save, I suppose, was the difference between the two sides.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match all through. A bit of a slow burner just to start with. I thought it wasn't going to really reach the tempo, but by God, it did in the second half. Athy, I think, looking back on it, I think Athy are the best team almost in a way to be playing Naas, because they're a real team of men, if you like. From the likes of Colin McCarran, the Highlands, the Kellys, and then the youngsters coming through as well. Like they really are a tough team, and when you compare their conviction with what I would say is a lack of conviction from Selbridge all afternoon against Naas, like they were never really at the pitch of it to start with against Naas, and never really had any belief in themselves. But these Athy boys really do. I thought it looked like maybe Sarsfields had caught them in the end. Sarsfields had such a good kind of last 10 minutes or so, and fair play to them. They absolutely dominated the Athy kickouts when they got the goal from Bolton, then the point, and it looked like there was only one winner at that point. But fair play to Athy for coming back. Now, worst possible ending to a game, and I think it's something that I suppose you can't throw out the new rules just for the last few minutes of a game, but absolute heartbreak for Sarsfields to cough up that 3-up breach right at the death there and effectively lose because of that. Obviously there was a chance, there was a couple of points and a chance late on then for young Harry Redmond as well.
Yeah.
These are the small margins, but it's such a shame for that breach to be a big part of Sarsfield's missing out. But I think in all honesty, I think Athy were full value for it. I think in terms of a full 60-minute performance, theirs was the better. We had the Sarsfield's management up near us in the press box watching the game throughout, and they were really tearing their hair out at some of the things Sarsfields were doing, particularly in the first half. So they weren't happy, but I thought Athy just put in a much better 60-minute performance and had some real gumption to go for those 2-pointers in the first half when they weren't really getting through for an awful lot of shots. But, some really classy 2-pointers there from the two Highlands and Feely.
Yeah. And Tommy, while the 4 teams in the semi-finals, they all had very good individual players. Is it fair to say, though, that both Naas and Athy had more a team effort, and they could spring decent players and more than decent quality players off the bench?
We can definitely say that for Naas. the depth that Naas have in every game. I mean, it's so impressive, and you always compare the Naas opposition, no matter who they're playing. You always say, Naas have a stronger bench, because they do. They have a stronger bench than nearly everybody. I think you'd be, if you were talking now, Pat, and Sarsfields had beaten a tie, you might say something similar there, because there was a good team effort from Sarsfields at times in the second half as well. We would have been talking about the comeback that they did, and that they did it as a team, that it wasn't one individual that came back and put, threw the shackles off and threw the scores over. It was a really good team performance by Sarsfields. They'll be absolutely gutted. I think they deserve to at least go to extra time, take nothing from a tie. A tie in the end, a tie did deserve to win it, because they did win it. Especially that first half performance that they had.
What was the loss of Ben McCormick early on, and then Ty Coey in the second half? That just too much for them to overcome.
Yeah, I think Ben. The thing is as well is that in the minutes that he was on, I actually turned to the friend of mine that was with the game. I said, "Geez, Ben looks good. Like, he's on it." His darting runs through the middle, and I was thinking this could be the game now. Because sometimes, I'm not saying you'd forget about Ben, but because of his injuries, and because he's sometimes so late coming back into Sarsfield's setup, that he doesn't get that consistent run with Sarsfields where you're constantly talking about him like we used to as the number one main threat. But then suddenly at the start of the match the other day, you're thinking, geez, maybe a tie have underestimated him as well, because he looks so sharp. I was genuinely devastated for him when I saw him going off, because we all want to see Ben at his very, very best. But yeah, to see him going off, and then the same with Tig in the middle, because we know how influential he's been this year. He took a couple of big hits, and it'd want to be a fairly big hit now to put him down. So
ankle injury in the end. Yeah, ankle injury in the end.
There you go. Could have easily rolled it or anything.
Yeah, Ger, we have a dispute, have we? We have a dispute in relation to a certain goal, and can anybody clarify what the story is on the goal scored by another?
Well, we had a long discussion on Sunday evening. Our reporter at the match was quite insistent that the ball went in. Niall Kelly's shot was in. If any touch was in the square, it was off the Sarsfield's goalkeeper. So he was quite insistent that it was to be Niall Kelly's goal. But in fairness, our man on the terraces as well was quite insistent on the opposite side. He always said that Colin Moore did get the touch actually inside rather than off Mark Courtney-Bourne in the Sarsfield's goal. So I think in the end, video evidence kind of supported our friend on the terrace there, Tommy's view. I thought, upon video evidence, and I have to say I was probably edging towards Richard's view before that. But after seeing the video evidence, I think definitely Colin Moore did appear to get a fist on it just in between the hands of Mark Courtney-Bourne. And when you look at it kind of like that, it was actually a really clever goal by Moore and just a continuation of his season. And what a vital goal it was as well. I'm sure the Tigers really don't care who scored it, because it was just such a key moment in the game coming right before half time. And it turned what had been a good half for a tie into a very, very good half, and it kind of gave them that platform. And even though Sarsfields did battle back so brilliantly late on, it was still, I suppose, took a huge effort, and maybe they ultimately paid for that. But just to touch on that, the 3-up indiscretion, it's such a severe punishment. And already I suppose League Slip and Castle Dermot in the Intermediate Championship have felt the weight of it, and there is definitely a school of thought that it's obviously the same for both teams, and it's up to both teams in these intense moments of pressure to keep their heads and to somehow communicate with each other and make sure that it is done properly. But even still, when it is an indiscretion, it is just such a severe punishment. But from talking to a couple of Sarsfield supporters, then maybe I suppose when they kind of sit down to really have a look back over the season, it probably won't be a big surprise to them that ultimately their season has ended that way, because by all accounts, it's something that has absolutely plagued them through the season, through the league season. The Aldridge Cup final, I think it cost them right back at the start. Something they didn't really get right in the league. They seem to have rectified it through the championship until it reared its head there again against Johnstown Bridge in the quarter-final. And then, unfortunately, at the worst possible moment for them, then, your heart would go out that it was a horrible way to lose any game, but particularly got a championship semi-final like that.
Absolutely.
How many of the management team are up at the back of the stand, Ger? And Richard
from Sarsfield.
Yeah.
The manager was there for most of it, I think, and maybe 2 or 3 others.
Yeah. Could do with 2 or 3 others down in the sideline, maybe, to keeping an eye on that. I don't stuck up like a rugby manager. Just I don't.
Then again, Selbridge Selbridge had 7 or 8 on the sideline at various points. So
that was funny. I saw that picture, lads. That Selbridge Naas match. I will say really quickly, Pat. In the first 10-15 minutes of that game, that was a game.
It was, yeah, end to end,
and it was
score for score.
It was end to end, score for score. But it would really look like, there's Antigi Carr were covering it, and you're thinking, geez, they got the right one, because it just looked like Selbridge, things were going right for Selbridge, and they were doing the right things. And now you always think like there is a kick in Naas, but the one thing you just keep in your head is if Selbridge can keep Naas out from a goal, because Naas have that, they get that goal, but just as teams get comfortable, teams think they have them, they get the goal. But that goal
thing was, though, I think the signs were there. And this isn't just with the benefit of hindsight, but I haven't in my notes. I had a couple of times. So Derek Kerwin got through for a fisted point, if you remember, fairly easily down the left. Brian Byrne made a run down the left, got a ball into Brian Steins without anyone laying a hand on either. Yeah. There were 2 or 3 occasions where Selbridge conceded points during that phase where it went point for point, and they got to, I think, 5 points each. Alex Byrne was drifting to the left, so it looked like they'd seen a weakness somewhere, and he was starting to get on ball and get through people far too easily. But I really thought the turning of the game was when Selbridge went 7-5 up. I thought, this is it, lads. Now you've got to go now. You've got the wind, but they just ended up. They lost the next 2 or 3 kickouts.
Yeah.
Naas got the goal, I think, immediately after that 7th point, if I'm not mistaken. Correct. And again, Alex Byrne gets through 2 players without, with a break. It was hard to see it coming. You could see it. And that's what I say. Selbridge had no conviction about them. They'd no confidence about them.
And look in the second half, Richard, when Selbridge had the exact same position and the same chances that Naas had in the corners. Pop passes in
short or hit the crossbar.
No, they didn't, because they didn't even take it in. They didn't even try it.
They had a couple. They had a couple that were awful efforts
in the second half.
Yeah, in the second half. Yeah.
So anytime I was looking, because I'd moved over because I really wanted to see that end line attack from Selbridge. Now I'm talking about the near side, the terrace side to me. Now it was the opposite side, obviously, the Naas were getting joy in the first half, the stand side. But I was thinking, try cut down the end line, try drag the Naas players down. But there was so many ball, the player just didn't take them on. As you said, when you're talking about the Naas players, 2 or 3 of them that took them on in the end line, took on 2 or 3 Selbridge players and got through, and suddenly they were through. Now I know Dara is a very difficult man to stop when he gets going, but the Selbridge were so hesitant, and it would always be recycled back to try get it to one of those shooters again. And then what were they doing when they were in front of the goals? Outside of the boot shots.
Yeah,
from 40 yards out, right in front of the goals, outside of the boot. The
experienced players too. Like this is what I don't get with
Richard, it's a different game from the terrace.
Yeah, but we're on the terrace here now, Pat.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, can I, before we finish over this, can I go back to that goal? If you recall, I'll throw this in now. I'm going to be devil's advocate. Paddy McDermott went in and spoke to his umpires, as a referee, spoke to his umpires, because there was a hint of a square ball in that one. Could it be that Paddy McDermott awarded the goal because it went directly into the net? Because if it had been touched by a player, it could have been a square ball.
The tie goal?
Yeah.
You should ask Paddy. I'll ask Paddy.
Yeah, do that.
It wouldn't necessarily need a touch, though, does it? If it was deemed to be a square ball.
That's true. Yeah.
And he was interfering with the goalkeeper. I mean, to me,
all right, okay. Cut that one out.
3 hands went up. I can't, even looking back at the video, I can't be definitive.
Yeah.
But lads, we looked at it so much, and we looked at it so much in detail, and we zoomed in on the video.
Yeah.
I still don't see it though, Tommy. But anyway.
apart from the touch, I presume you all realise the most important thing, that he was in the square.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed that because we were so busy all week trying to figure out who actually scored the goal. But
anyway,
he was in the square as well.
Anyway, yeah.
Pat, sorry, can I just before we move on? just one of the other big talking points that I thought from the Naas Selbridge game was the tactic from Naas to completely give up the kick out to Selbridge. And I wonder, is that something that Philly McMahon will persist with, into the county final and potentially even a Leinster campaign as well? Because he obviously, I think he spoke on TG Cahir about it and said that it was just supposed to ruffle the Selbridge feathers, to do something that was a little bit unexpected, and particularly to maybe nullify the impact of Shane McNamara's kickouts as well. But it's not a tactic that I would kind of be in favour of generally, but obviously it worked on the day quite well for Naas. But it will be interesting to see if that's something that they continue to do going forward.
We'll talk about that next week when we will be previewing the Joe Malamotor Senior Football Championship. We'll also previewing the Intermediate Championship as well, the National Electrical Wholesalers. But for this week, Ger, we'll finish off by having the Senior Team of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks as always to Loading and Lifting for their sponsorship of our teams of the week. They're kind of coming to the end now after this long club season. But yeah, out of the championship semi-finalists, so Shane McNamara is the only Selbridge man in the team this week. So he's in goal. Obviously, Rob Fitzgerald of Naas is joined by the two Spillane brothers then from Athy in the fullback line. Padraig, who made that match-winning block right at the end, and Michael as well. Two Naas men then in that half-back line, Owen Doyle and Paddy McDermott. And Shay Ryan then of Sarsfields has picked a centre-back, even though he probably played in midfield. And he actually was outstanding, I thought, for Sarsfields, particularly after Ty Cowie went off. He was a real driving force trying to pull Sarsfields back into that game. So the all-Athy midfield partnership then, David Hyland and Kevin Feely, and two Athy men then at wing forward as well, Colin Moran and Conor Doyle, either side of Callum Bolton of Sarsfields, and further forward then Ryan Carney of Sarsfields, Alex Byrne of Naas, and Niall Kelly of Athy.
Quick comment, Richard. Ryan Carney spent a lot of time away from goal for 3/4 of the game, but when he started to go forward closer to the goals, made a difference to Sarsfields. Or am I looking at a different game?
No, it's fair enough. I think he does his best work out around kind of centre half forward.
But he was further out. He was further out.
Yeah, no matter what number. I mean, he had a difficult enough game. He was caught in possession a couple of times, which again is Athy's kind of aggression coming through. I think I think the first goal came off that, but he recovered well and he kept going.
Yeah. No, I just thought he was playing too far away from the opposing goals compared to previous games where he was more effective, and then when he did play close to the goals, it brought a different perspective
maybe so.
That's only from a Cavan man living in Kildare. Anyway, let's move on quickly, and we will go with the Intermediate Football Championship semi-finals review, the National Electrical Wholesalers Intermediate Football Championship semi-finals. 2 Mile House 8 points, St. Lawrence's 12. That was quite a game. That was in Hawkfield on Saturday, and on Friday night, I suppose it probably was predictable. Sallins 3-16, Milltown 1-12, although I think Milltown might be a little bit disappointed with that. But Sallins were the team, Richard, that we expected them to be.
Absolutely, they were. And we'd really built this one up and thought, I think between us, we probably thought Milltown might get a bit closer than they did. I was getting quite nervous about it because I tipped Sallins all through. And the more I looked at Milltown, I thought these guys can really do some damage here. But I think Milltown maybe were a little bit off, particularly in terms of some of their shooting, but they still played pretty well throughout. I mean, they had a really strong midfield. Joe Dunn had a fantastic game, kind of flicking between midfield. Find of the season. Certainly one of them.
Yeah.
Certainly one of them. Liam Kelly from wingback was brilliant for Milltown as well. So it's not that they particularly performed badly. And I actually thought kind of midway through the first half, or just before that midway point, they were starting to keep possession of the ball into the wind. And I thought Sallins were looking a little bit like they didn't really know how they were going to sort this out. They were only, I think, 5-2 up or something, 5-3 even at that point, playing with that really strong Storm Amy wind into the town end. But of course, Sallins then got the 2 goals, the 2 Daltons combining for the 2 goals. And from there on, they just powered on. And really, it was a real team effort. Like you'd got Luke Killian had a great game in and around midfield. Dara Mangan was strong around midfield. Dalton, Paul Farrelly, even though he got the black card. But the defence was fantastic. Like they kept Paddy Donoghue very quiet. Ben Curran I think scored a 2-pointer, didn't really get an awful lot of chances beyond that. So it was a real, full team effort from Salons across the whole team, I thought, and they fully deserved the win without Middletown, as I say, playing particularly badly.
Mm. And Tommy, the other game, 2 Mile House, and the Larrys were 7 points, 1 up at halftime after playing with Storm Amy or whatever she was called in their backs. You wouldn't have thought it would have been enough, but the House came back and scored 4 in a row in the second half, but they just couldn't get any closer then. And from midway through the second half, Larrys took over again, particularly with Rory Lawler.
Yeah, very similar, I suppose, to their meeting in the group stages. I think something pretty similar happened in that as well. Obviously, much less at stake and a lot higher scoring on the day, where Larry's ran into a big lead at half time, and 2 Mile House reeled them in a little bit in the second half, but ultimately wasn't enough. So same thing at the weekend. I think we all kind of thought that 2 Mile House would give St. Lawrence's a bit of a rattle. Again, the elements played a big part, as they did in all games at the weekend. Depends what are St. Lawrence is taking out of this now. No, apart from the win, knowing that they have Salons in the final, they know that they have to improve. But their younger players are definitely stepping up for Larry's, as you were talking about, like Rory Lawler there and young TJ Nolan. There's some really, really good, exciting young players in. And it's funny when you talk about the young players. The Larry's lads, the young lads at Larry's are big lads. They're big, strong lads. They always have been. Even back when I was playing against Larry's at underage, they were always hardy. But their younger lads so they're not relying on an older spine of the team that's physically strong, because those lads have it as well. Adam Steed is a big man as well. So they won't be found wanting in that department when they're playing Salons. But getting that win was the most important thing for them, because we discussed it before how difficult it is to bounce straight back up after being relegated from senior. But for Larry's to even get to the final surely puts more belief in them as well, because it is such a difficult championship, and because maybe they were disappointed earlier in the championship, and now they're starting to gather that, getting over the line against Castledermot, a game they probably should have lost. Castledermot again got caught for the 3-up indiscretion. But then Larry's won in extra time, and they were far better than them in extra time because they had more gas, more energy. A big final for them, and they also have a really, really good manager there as well, St. Lawrence's, that will stand to them.
Yeah, and Ger, I suppose Salons were favourites, or one of the favourites to get through. They've done so. There was always pressure on the Larrys to get back into a final, maybe to get back to senior after relegation last year. As Tommy's saying there's a lot of young players there, perhaps compared to other years where there was a big gap between the younger player and the older player. There's a lot of young players who now have got a lot of experience at intermediate level and are thriving on it. So it's going to be a great final between Larrys and Salons, you would expect.
Yeah, definitely. They both had their own kind of pressure in different ways to deal with this year. Salons have probably been, I think, most people's kind of favourites based on what they've done in other years, but obviously then a fantastic campaign in Division 1 as well. But they've had, I suppose, the memories of those heartbreaking defeats in the last couple of years to deal with, where St. Lawrence's, coming down from relegation from the senior from the first time in over 4 decades, they I suppose would be expecting to bounce back straight away. But even though they're a young side, I think the man on the sideline, as Tommy kind of referenced there, Noel Mooney, he's a vital cog, I think, for St. Lawrence's. He has the know-how of being there. But Salons aren't let down on that side of things either, because Jonathan Daniels is a very capable manager as well, who's got great experience too. And it's going to be a good final, absolutely. I mean, we kind of thought that 2 Mile House were that side who were building momentum, and how many times we've seen it down through the years in the intermediate championship, that it's that side who just can put together a run of form in the latter stages of the championship, and it doesn't really matter what has happened in the 9 months up to that. It's who can put that winning run together in the latter stages of the championship and come from nowhere to win it. And we thought maybe that was going to be 2 Mile House, but yeah, maybe that's going to be St. Lawrence's now, because suddenly they had the momentum there after a couple of great wins. But yeah, we will probably discuss the final in much more detail next week, but it's still going to be Salons who are going to be favourites managed to win. And Colin Dalton, again, absolutely unbelievable. What a season he's had, and to have been so good in his first year for Kildare, and has just gone into Salons there and picked it up. And I think everyone around him as well has kind of raised their game too. He's that kind of player as well, and obviously has a great understanding with his brother in particular, James, there, and they're absolutely shooting the lights out. So yeah, we'll save some of the rest of the stuff for next week, but yeah, it's an intriguing matchup.
We'll stick with you, Ger, then for the National Electrical Wholesalers Intermediate Football Championship Team of the Week, thanks to our sponsors again.
Yeah, so once again, thanks to Loading and Lifting for their sponsorship of our Team of the Week. So we have Matthew Farrelly of Salons in goal, 2 St. Lawrence's men in the full-back line there, Kieran O'Sullivan and Ian Fleming, along with Gavin Burke of 2 Mile House. 2 Kellys then either side of the wing-back, Liam Kelly of Milltown and Luke Kelly of Salons, either side of David O'Driscoll of St. Lawrence's. Into midfield there, Colin Dalton of Salons, who could probably do a job in any area of the field the way he's playing at the moment, and TJ Nolan of St. Lawrence's, who's in equally good form there for his side. Another Kelly then, Stephen Kelly of Salons at wing forward, with Rory Laurer of St. Lawrence's and Keane Grimes of Salons in the half-forward line. And then further forward again, Chris Healy of 2 Mile House, Joe Dunn of Milltown and James Dalton of Salons.
Okay, thank you, Ger. Okay, let's move on then to the first major championship football final of the year, and that's the Tom Cross Transport Junior Football Championship. That was between Grange Nolvan and Rathcoffey. Tommy, was that one that you would have expected to go the way it did?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, the big thing at the start of the match was Rathcoffey obviously losing Harris. To injury. Now I didn't realize that until it was announced. It was announced in the stadium. I didn't realize that he was so I heard 2 different things. I heard that he hurt himself in the kickabout the night before. I heard that he did his ACL. I'm hearing lots of different things, but he's irreplaceable for Rathcoffey. So the final was always going to be affected not only on the scoreline, but maybe by the quality, because of he's just such a massive loss for Rathcoffey. But did it play out the way I thought? Probably, yeah. The wind, again, played a big factor. I spoke to Paul Huntingdon after the game, and as he said in his own words, that they took it as a little win, that they went in level, was it, at half-time? But, against the wind for Rathcoffey, just to stop Rathcoffey building up a lead was huge for Grange, massive, especially with Rathcoffey's shooting power. But then the way they shut Rathcoffey down at times, Grange, and just their power through the middle. We've been talking about him all year, but Conal Bergen again was just, he was so good. He's such an important player for them. Their experienced players then against the middle, like Keith McGloin probably doesn't get a lot of the plaudits from us as well. Like he's a big operator in the middle field. He wins a lot of ball. But Grange were just a better team on the day, and it was an exciting end. Rathcoffey did come back. They got a late goal, possibly maybe 2 minutes too late. But I don't know if he saw it. Ethan O'Donoghue's his free. I mean, it brought back memories of, was it Rob Kelly?
2010.
Was it Rob Kelly that took the free for Kildare? Wasn't it just tipped onto the crossbar, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
God,
Callum King.
Ethan took the back out of the net. That was spectacular. If anybody get a chance to look back at that, it was really something else. But it was just a little bit too late for Rathcoffey. Grange had done enough, and at times Rathcoffey played really well, matched Grange at certain parts of the field, but Grange were getting the scores that Rathcoffey weren't getting. They were if they're in a certain position, 25, 30 yards out, the right lad on the ball, it'd be tapped over the bar. There was no overplaying of the ball. They held possession near the end of the game when they realised they needed to do a bit of time management. But if the score was open, took their shot on. And that was the big thing. I think they scored 18, 19 points in the end. Well-deserved winners, the best junior team all year. Going forward now, play the Offaly champions.
Richard, being a South County man yourself, what will this do for the south of the county, and in particular for a club like Grange Nolvan, who probably maybe struggled for players in recent years?
Yeah, I think Ger had called out some of their finishes in the junior championship over the last kind of 6-7 years, and years when they couldn't win a game. So, but they've been building through the league. I mean, they had a great league campaign, finished kind of mid-table in Division 2. So they've been building towards this. I think they really needed to get this, win this year to get over the line and get themselves up to intermediate. I'd be very curious as to how they go now in intermediate. I think there's a lot about that team. Again, it's not just the Bergens by any means, although Conal Bergen I think has been the player. We won't pick the team of the year, the player of the year yet, but he's certainly been a standout at midfield. Someone, I don't know if Tommy agrees, he's probably seen more of them, but he looks to me like someone Brian Flanagan might be looking at or might need to maybe have a look at, because we do need that sort of mobility around the middle at county level. So
I agree, and it'd probably be brought in at minimum into the development squad, Richard, because that seems to be the pathway for a lot of these lads. Fiona was on it last year, and Fiona Bergen did, there was no way he wasn't going to get onto it. Everybody was talking about him, and to put him into the development panel, see how he got on, and these lads are probably part of a 2-year plan for Flano. He's not going to just say, how good is he, get him in, can he play? Maybe he would have seen him, and that could be for Conal. It might be get him in with the development squad with a view to progressing them on, getting them up to a certain level. But as you say, the quality of those Bergens, and there's so many unsung heroes on that Grange team, but there was so much focus again on Fionn, and Fionn dragging lads out. That James Gannon got a lot of good ball the other day. He's been super for them all year. But
Fionn himself, I thought, played very well this time. I think he got 6 points, maybe 3 from play. 6 points, 3 from play. Spot on. Contributed. He He did his bit as well. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, Timmy Doyle starting the match. Timmy's probably 41 now, and then for him to start the match, and it was very important for him to be on. And I meant to say it on the last podcast that Timmy isn't like your usual 40-year-old lad that you'd throw in at the end of a match, maybe to score that hopefully might score a goal. Timmy is extremely fit. He's extremely fit, looks after himself very well. He's well able for these matches. He's very similar to Anthony Lawler in Castledermot, who'll be a good few years older than Timmy. But these lads, to come back to Anthony Rainbow, all these lads that Johnny Doyle look after themselves so well that they can play well into their 40s. That Timmy was vital in that first half for Grange, because he was barking out the orders, he was moving lads around, he was making plenty of runs himself. There was a lot to that final that was really interesting. But Rathcoffey should be, they're going to be devastated, but they should be going into next year bouncing. They should really be saying, look what we nearly did after a really good Division 3 campaign, where they more than held their own in Division 3, which is a really, really difficult division. And then to come through, the second best team in a really difficult, it was the most difficult junior championship in years in Kildare. Mm-hmm. So fair play to them. I hope they do take a lot out of this year.
So a big win for the Grange Nolva there. And after the game, our Tommy, he spoke with the Grange Nolva captain, Paul Huntingdon. Let's hear that audio now.
I'm here with Grange captain Paul Huntingdon, victorious after winning the Kildare Junior Football Championship. Paul, first thoughts after coming down off the steps with that cup?
Just delighted to get over the line. Just looking around there now, it's years in the making, and we'll enjoy this now. It's been a long time. A lot of lads here have been here when the club is right at the very bottom, and they stuck to it, and we had our day here today now.
Paul, I tell you, it was tough out there, but because of the wind conditions, you really had to manage the game probably a little bit differently than you normally would. You could see you were marshalling at the defence there. Was there a different approach today because of the wind, or were you setting your game plan?
No, look, we just knew that if we were able to control the game, especially against the wind in the first half, and if we went up maybe by a point or two or level, that we'd have the advantage in the second half. And it was kind of a little win for us going in a half-time level, because we knew with the advantage of the wind in the second half we'd be able to kick on.
Exactly. And Paul, one last thing anyway, there'll be some celebrations tonight.
There'll be savage celebrations. I'd say anyone around Grange, and we'll be back to the High Cross for 3 days straight. But look, we did have our eyes on a Leinster as well at the start of the year. We seen Kilcullen, I think in 2021, got to a Leinster final here, and Milltown beat us by a point in 23 and went on to win a Leinster. So we'll enjoy this for a few days, but we have our eye on that as well.
Paul, congratulations, enjoy the celebrations.
Thanks very much, Tom.
And that was the Grange captain, Paul Huntingdon, talking to our Tommy there. The one game that was due to be on last week was the Junior A final, and that was postponed. That's on Friday night, and that's between Ballykelly and Robertstown. Obviously, conditions, Tommy, will be a little bit better, and the match is in Mangard Park as well. You're looking forward to that one. Ballykelly, will they still be maybe favourites?
Ballykelly. I got Ballykelly will be delighted to hear you saying their favourites. In fairness to them, you know, they did put up a big performance against Kill in that semi-final. I'd say Ballykelly and Robertstown last weekend. Can you imagine now if you're supposed to play a Junior A final on a Friday night and it's your last game of the season? I know I'd be doing some planning for my Saturday night, my Friday night, my Saturday night, and suddenly then it's off, and it's off for another week. So they've had to hang around, but it could be a really good game. Rathcoffey are really, really close to being in that top four kind of in the junior, and like they have been kind of consistently over the years. But can Ballykelly put in one more big performance like they did against Kill? Maybe. I'll be going to Robertstown up. And to score a few goals in the process. They're mad for goals out in Robertstown.
That game is the Town Cross Junior A Football Championship Final. That's in Mangard Park on Friday night, 8:15, and our referee is Mark Murphy. Just before we leave football and the Football Championship and the Championship in general, our good friend DontFoul, Richard, had some very interesting statistics in relation to games for clubs over the last few months, particularly in the Championship. Kildare really come out on top there.
It is, yeah. And we were talking here previously about the hurling, and you know, maybe a little bit critical about the schedule there and how the number of games even that the hurlers get. But in terms of footballers, that table that DontFoul had showed that in terms of senior football, Kildare have more games than any other county in Ireland. I think you were saying, if I remember right from the table, I think it's about 36 games, if I'm not mistaken.
41.
41, isn't it?
31, okay, yeah. 41, sorry, 41. I think the biggest elsewhere was around 36. And we were about 41. And I suppose essentially that's the preliminary round coming in before the group stages, because most counties seem to just run a 14 group or whatever the group stage is and then go into a quarter final. Whereas we have the preliminary round and then the preliminary quarterfinals take another 2 games. So and I'm all for that. I think players need games, want games. I think it's if we could do something similar for the hurling, where they had a few more games in a more condensed period. We won't go back over all that old ground, but there was just interest, just something I hadn't even thought about, that the Kildare Championship has so many games.
Richard, isn't it great? If you were sitting at home and you're wondering, how can I promote a Club Kildare membership to the people in Kildare? I mean, it's just been handed to you on a plate.
There you go.
I mean, the Club Kildare membership this year, personally, I probably get more value than anybody else out of it.
Definitely.
I mean, I from my point of view, it's well worth the money. But like, if you were to say, like, look at it and say, we have the most games, championship games, of any county in the whole of Ireland. And you get, for one county, you get to go to all of them. Like, it really is, like, it's just opportunities there like that, because there's so many good football matches and hurling matches in Kildare that I just think it's an opportunity that's there for them.
There you are. So if you want to become a member of Club Kildare, all you have to do is talk to Colin Farrell or indeed Ollie Ryan or any of the committee. They'll make sure.
Tommy's on a commission for that. Clearly,
Tommy's on a commission. Yeah, that's it. We're like that here on this podcast. We anything at all, we'll make sure we get it. We're mercenaries. Anyway, let's move on. And it was a great weekend of ladies Kildare LGFA finals at the weekend. The big one, of course, was St. Lawrence's against Easttown, and that was really, I suppose, the turn up for the books, because St. Lawrence's turned it around and they won a repeat of last year's final, but this time it was the Larrys who stopped at the 6 in a row from Easttown. It was an excellent game of football, actually. Larrys took into a 3-1 lead before Easttown really got on the score sheet. That was after 18 minutes from Roisin or Ruth Sargent rather. But it was 5 points to 2 at half time, and you still wondered Easttown hadn't played well. St. Lawrence's had done their very best, and there was a breeze, and it would favour Easttown in the second half. But in fairness, St. Lawrence's, they played like a team possessed. They went 7-2 up early in the second half, and though we had 3 in a row from Easttown to bring it back to 8-5. It really was the great team performance by St. Lawrence's. Loads of sisters there. Obviously, the Wheeler sisters, Emer, Gillian, and Ciara were there. We had the Miley sisters, Jean and Niamh. Niamh started, Jean came on, and we had the O'Sullivan sisters, Aveen O'Sullivan and Cleva O'Sullivan. And in the middle of them all was the likes of Mia Ryan and Marie Keeley, the former Wicklow player. So really, really great performance by St. Lawrence's. And but you have to hand it to Easttown. They were brilliant champions for the last 5 years or so. And pity that they didn't make it at Leinster. But there's a lot of young players still to come through on that. So it's going to make it very, very interesting what's going to happen in the Kildare Senior Football, LGFA Senior Football Championship. Other games there, we had the intermediate championship final that was won by Ballinath. They defeated Naas 3-9 to 9 points to the Junior A. That's the first two were, of course, were the Joe Mallon Motors sponsored. This one, the Junior A Championship, that's by Naas Racecourse Nafina 2-14, Celbridge 1-8. The Junior B, Athgarvan 2-5, Ellistown 1-7, and the Junior C was won by 2 Mile House. Was it 5-4-9 to 5-4? Yeah, 4-9 5-4. Yeah, you just had to do a quick tot up there. So well done to everybody. And of course, this weekend, Ballina are out there playing in the first round of the Leinster Intermediate Championship, and Nafina are out there playing in the first round of the Junior A Championship. So we're looking forward to covering those games as well. And
both of those games are at home, Pat, aren't they?
That's right. The Johnstown Bridge is the venue for Ballina. That's at 2:00, and the Ballyteague is the venue for Nafina. I think they're playing Columkills of Meath. I can't remember who Ballina are playing, but both games are at 2:00. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Columkills of Meath are the visitors to Ballyteague to take on Nafina, and I think that Larry's will be out the following weekend in the Senior Championship. Just before we leave the Senior match, I spoke with Niamh Miley, a very emotional Niamh Miley, after the victory by Larry's over Easttown, and just let's hear that audio now.
Well, Niamh, how does it feel to be a champion of Kildare?
I actually, when the final was to be, I thought I nearly lost my life. No, it's so good. Jesus, like when we were training back in January, like this is obviously our goal. And coming out here today, like just we were looking back on last year and like the vibe was different, like our head was different. I think like last year we were all about like, we didn't really expect to get into a final, and then all of a sudden we were. This year, like we were so much more focused on like, we are getting into a final and our goal is to win it this time. And it's amazing.
What was said at half time, you're after playing with the wind, 3 points up, I think it was, or 2 points up, or was it? That's it.
Yeah. At half time, he basically said that we just have to keep the heads. The wind was, in such a weird way, it was kind of against us, because in the first half it was in a weird way again, it was with us. But we just said we had to be patient with the ball. We always say when it gets to the forwards to not just kick these wallopers out of anywhere to see where it is to go, but it was always to keep the ball calm, work it around, and when the opportunity's on, we fire. And the run off the shoulder was great. We have the 2 Sullivans, they can kick from out from the 45, which that's great. And we've Marie inside who, sure, she's a goal scorer.
What was it like for you when you saw Jean coming on as well?
Yeah, no, it was good. Jean's just coming back from having a baby. Sorry. Yeah. It was just great. Like, it's so good playing with your sister, but it was great.
And you're making me cry now. And what about the dad, Liam?
Oh God,
is he here tonight?
He is. Stand behind me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, Dad, sure. He's some influence on us with football. It's all football in our house. Apart from one sibling. Sure, we take on after him. He was known as probably a bit of a crazy person back then. I didn't take after him after a first shooting, but I took after him probably for his head.
Finally then, where does this stand in relation to that Fittest family?
Oh God. I think this is better. I will say it's better, yeah.
Well done, Niamh.
Okay, and just to complete our ladies' look at the LGFA, let's have a look at the LGFA Senior Team of the Week. And they line out as follows. In goals was number 1, as usual, Chloe Wright. Chloe was only 15 years and 364 days, because she celebrated her 16th birthday on Saturday. What a great performance by her. I should have mentioned that when we were looking back at it, but she made some very good in telling saves and some great kicks out as well. So well done to Towie Wright. Only 16 years of age. She was the goalkeeper. The full back line was Emma Wheeler, Niamh O'Connell, the captain, and Niamh Miley. In the halfbacks, then we had Emer Glancy of Larry's, Ruth Sargent of Easttown, and Laura Byrne of Easttown. Midfield was Ciara Wheeler of Larry's and Hazel McLaughlin of Easttown. Great to see Hazel back in such a good performance again after 2 ACLs. The half-forward line then was Mia Ryan of Larry's, Grace Clifford of Easttown. Great to see Grace back as well. And Jessica Harney, who had a standing game going forward. She should be back in the county, I'd say, for 2026. That's of Easttown. And the full-forward line then was Caoimhe O'Sullivan of Larry's, Marie Keeley of Larry's, and Abby Cahill of Easttown. So that's our LGFA senior team of the week, and that's our complete look at football. Of course, on Saturday then we have the Senior Camogie Final, and that's between Naas and Maynooth. Tommy, Maynooth appearing in final for the first time ever?
Yeah, Friday night, I think. Pat is the
Friday night, of course, yes.
Friday night, they're same as the ladies last week to get the Friday night spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So they're looking for the first ever title in Maynooth. And in fairness to them, you know, they battled through to get here. Just going back over, looking at it earlier, where they'd actually lost 2 of their matches. So the Camogie Championship is just the one, the Senior Camogie Championship, same as the format as all the rest of them. It's just the one group, and then obviously top 4 in the semi-finals. But Maynooth had lost 2 games out of 4 in that group, and got to but still got to the semi-final and beat Selbridge in the semi-final to get here. Looking back, no, absolutely, you know, because I think Selbridge probably would have been slightly tipped to get to the final with Naas.
Again. Yeah.
But you just look at I was looking at the scores charts earlier that Austin Crowe keeps putting up for the Camogie. Fair play to him. He keeps putting up all the score charts all the way down to junior, as with all the tables and all that as well. So it's handy as well. I know it's handy to keep an eye on. But Roisin Ford absolutely shooting the lights out for Maynooth this year, which is brilliant to see from somebody that's followed Kildare ladies and Camogie over the years. Like, Roisin's been such an important player for both. Huge player for Kildare Camogie. And then when she went in with Diana Hora's Kildare footballers a couple of years ago, she was so good early in that season. And then, of course, she got the knee injury again, the dreaded ACL. Put her out for, I think she was out for a year, like a full year, maybe a little bit more. And for a young girl, I think she was only 21, 22 at the time. And she was such a county player for Camogie football. So that by all accounts, she's back absolutely flying now. And it's going to be really interesting to see how she gets on, because the that Naas team going for 4 in a row. Again, another team that Naas team, if you go back, I think, Pat, you probably would remember it because you've covered a lot of Camogie. Didn't Larry's win 9 in a row or something in Kildare? Something crazy.
Before my time. Yeah, before
I think
my time.
It was only 10 years ago or that.
The Tracy sisters were very prominent in that, and I think it's one of the Tracys, Donnelly, I think, is the cornerback was the cornerback on the Larry's team, and TJ Nolan is another son of another sister of the Tracy. So there you are. There's a bit of a link from the past to the present. Yeah, the Larry's were very good. Of course, the Holtons were playing there as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. If Naas can get that 4 in a row, because Leinster gets pretty difficult, and we're seeing them lose to, I think it was Michael a couple of years ago from Carlow, and you could really see the strength of the Michael team bolstered by the Carlow players as well. But if Rebecca McDermott playing out of her skin as well, herself, and obviously Aoife as well. Caoimhe Mara, I think, was another one that was up near the top of those score charts. But a lot of those younger girls that when they won a championship a couple of years older again, I think this could be. I genuinely think this could be really good, because Maynooth are coming in hardened after a couple of losses. Naas have breezed into the final. The scorers are mad. So I scribbled it down earlier. So Roisin Ford has scored 641 so far, and Rebecca McDermott has scored 641 for Naas. But from play, Caoimhe Mara from Naas has scored 11-11. Now, so
There you
there's
go.
one player that'll have to be. You can keep an eye on her on Friday night.
Yeah. And of course, Naas will be favourites. Obviously, they've been there for the last number of years, and they got to a Leinster final last year, and were unlucky to lose by a point. Probably should have got a draw in that one and gone into extra time. I suppose this is one for another time. The disappointing thing is that there are no Naas players on the Kildare Camogie team for 2025. Yep. So that's something that'll have to be looked at, and maybe we'll talk to people involved at a later stage. But that match is the Camogie final, the Coolslitters Kildare Senior Camogie Final, Maynooth versus Naas on Friday night in Cedarville St. Conleth's Park. Throw in there at 7:30. We had lots of good things in the last week or so, but we've had a couple of, I suppose you might say, things we might regret. The fact that three great players who have represented the county with great favour and distinction and that over the last number of years, they've retired this week. That's Daniel Flynn, Ellen Dowling, and indeed Clare Sullivan. Richard, Daniel Flynn was always a favourite of yours, and indeed a favourite of many in the county.
Yeah, I think the thing about Daniel is uniqueness. Not just at the Kildare level, but even nationally. Like, can you think of another player as powerful, athletic, just does so much off the cuff, which we tore our hair out at times, let's face it. But he's just a unique player. I mean, I've been watching Kildare since late 70s, shall we say. I can't think of another player I could compare him to, other than maybe to a degree Jerry Power, which is really going back even before Pat's time now. The old Raheens player who played for Kildare, like he had the same pace, and once he got the ball, there was an excitement around the ground. You hadn't a clue what he was going to do. I'm not sure he necessarily would have known himself, but Daniel was just like that himself as well. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best Kildare player over the last 50 years or anything like it, or even over the last 20 years. Because he didn't have that consistency, let's face it. He could shoot a mark wide from 20 meters, but at the same time, he'd score. I'll remember the goals, I suppose, as well as that point under the Hogan stand that, everyone outside Kildare said he was going for a cross, but everyone in Kildare knew that was Daniel going for that point against Dublin, wasn't it?
Yes,
for me, I think the real shock and awe started with Daniel in 2018, and it was that goal for me against Derry up in Owen Beg. I was lucky enough to be there, and he just slalomed in from the left wing, and you're expecting someone's going to put a tackle in here or he's going to lay it off or something, but he just kept going, and such a goal. But then he replicated that so many different times. The lovely chipped goal against Monaghan. There was a goal against Westmeath in the league. I think that was back under the early Keane O'Neill days. But at that,
remember the goal he scored against Naas?
The one he got against Naas,
where he hand passed it to himself.
That's right. Yeah, in Hawkfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, going about, I suppose 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years. Brilliant.
But just a unique player, and just gave, and enjoyed the game so much, clearly, and he wasn't too serious about it, and maybe that probably, might have upset a few managers here and there and a few players. I remember when we conceded the 5 goals against Meath during COVID, and he was laughing and joking with some of the Meath players he probably knew, given he's from up that part of Kildare. And a lot of people got bent out of shape about that. How can he be so joyful after the team has embarrassed us or whatever, but that was Daniel, and he just didn't give a damn, and he just enjoyed the game. That was it. I remember actually, I'll finish on this one, but going back to last summer in the Tailteann Cup in Clonmullion, of all places, one of the worst grounds you could host an inter-county game, but it was a bright sunny day, lovely day, if you remember, those that were there, and interviewed Daniel after the game, and he was full of the joys. His attitude was like, beautiful day, I'm out playing ball, what more could you want? And that was Daniel all over for me.
He was brilliant. He was brilliant that day as well.
I've just conducted a retirement interview with him, which will appear in the Kildare Nationalist next week. And I put two things, which you kind of touched on there, two things to him, Richard. One, I said, there are not many people in sport, but particularly in GAA, that would be known by their first name. Maybe you have Paddy down in Kerry or Jacko. But anytime you mentioned Daniel, you knew they were talking about Daniel Flynn. And another thing you touched on there, I remember a great discussion before your time, of course, between Willie Duggan and Moss Keane about playing with Ollie Campbell and Tony Ward, who were vying for the out half position. And they both agreed that they could play with Ollie Campbell because they knew what he could do. But the reverse was that they couldn't play with Tony Ward because they didn't know what he was going to do, and Tony Ward didn't know what he was going to do. So I put that to Daniel. I put that to Daniel tonight, and it'd be interesting to hear. Oh, it's a very, very good answer. A very good answer. Again, Ger, two great ladies players who finished this week as well. Of course, Ellen and Clare, Ellen Dowling and Claire Sullivan. Great stalwarts for Kildare and are still putting it in at club level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the thing about Daniel there was nice, obviously, that he finished up with a TOTW Cup medal and get something for his efforts. And these two women, they've been part of a Kildare side who have, especially in the last couple of years, have racked up a huge amount of trophies and league titles, and then going all the way up to play at the very top level. I can remember Ellen Dowling playing in a schools All-Ireland final, so I feel very old now when I see her retiring at the end of a long career.
It was under 5, Ger. It was under 5.
It probably feels like that at this stage, all right, yeah. What an outstanding kind of player she was. She's one of those young players that you saw and you just knew that she had an inter-county career ahead of her if she chose, and she certainly did. She gave great dedication, great commitment, and an outstanding player. That left foot of hers was brilliant. She had a real thump of a ball. She could strike it so sweetly, and in a lot of years kind of was a real experienced figure in that forward line as well, which was very important as the kind of demographics of the team got younger. The likes of Ellen in the forward line, and then Clare as well. Clare's performances in Croke Park for the All-Ireland a couple of years ago was just immense. She covered so much ground, I think particularly under Diana Horace, she got the ideal role for her. She was kind of named the wing forward and working back then as a kind of an extra defender, but equally still able to get forward and join in the attacks as well. She was just I don't know how many miles she would have covered in the last couple of years. It'd be very interesting to see her GPS stats. I say she covered nearly, more ground probably than any of the other Kildare players, and that's not taking anything away from the other Kildare players. She was just a machine to run all day for the team, and two players who can certainly go off into the distance and into the dimming light and look back very favourably on their careers because they put in a huge effort for Kildare and they have the medals to show for it.
Yeah, and Tommy, just talking about Ellen and Clare. Ellen, obviously the stylish player, could score the stylish scores, but Clare was somebody, even though she was very slender, she put her body where nobody else would, really.
Unbelievable. I watched I was lucky enough when I got kind of slightly involved with the Kildare ladies team a few years ago. I got to know a lot of the girls, but like Ellen and Clare they're such nice people as well. They were immediately welcoming. Anytime I saw them, once they kind of figured out who I was and stuff, just so nice, just genuine girls. I think I was it the first round of the league this year, I think, at Division 1 against Monaghan. It was rotten. Waterford. It was just this wet, rotten day, exactly. And I was behind the goals with Claire's husband Brian, and if it's a wet day with a wet ball, there's only one person on the field ever that's going to be going in head first, doesn't care. That's going to be Clare, and I'd say within 10 minutes she went in, and I was just like, she got a right clatter in the middle because, again, she threw her entire body at the ball. That's what Clare does. Yeah. And she got this clatter. And I went, I looked at Brian, and Brian just went, she's grand. She'll be all right. It doesn't matter how hard the hit was. She was going to just shake herself.
Typical O'Flaherty answer, yeah.
That was exactly it, yeah. But she was so tough. And Ellen as well, like they were so important. Like we know all the characters from the All-Ireland winning team a couple of years ago. And we always talk about Roshan and Grace and these girls and Leisha. But like Ellen and Clare were so important for that group as well. Not because they were really important players on the starting 15, but for the younger players as well, and for the experience. I mean, they're both, over 10, 12 years service in the white jersey? Yeah. Fair play to them.
Yeah, and all we can say from all of us here on the short grass is Daniel, Clare and Ellen, thanks for the memories. That's all we can say. And we'll look forward to reading Daniel next week. And we'll be talking to Ellen and Claire in the weeks to come as well. Okay, Ger, we have other sports. And a big Friday night, of course, for our female professional boxer, Kelsey Leonard. She had a great debut up in Belfast, beat Carter, the English girl Carter, in inside the distance in was it round 3? I think it was, or was it round 2? And now she's fighting her second fight, this time against the Hungarian of similar to herself, one fight and one victory inside the distance as well, Hungarian Milak Zemet. And that's in the National Stadium on Friday night. One to look forward to, Ger.
Yeah, definitely. And, Kelsey obviously made such a blistering start to her pro career with that outstanding performance against kind of what had been she made it look a very ordinary opponent, but actually her opponent had a pretty decent amateur record and had a kind of long-standing professional career as well. Although plenty of losses on her record, she was a real kind of experienced, battle-hardened girl and hadn't been stopped on too many occasions, even though she'd lost many of her fights. But yeah, Kelsey was superb that day. It was a real kind of a statement of intent in her professional debut. And I suppose, thinking back to Caitlin Phelan, her time was trying to make her way to professional boxing. The hard part is getting opponents opponents of good level and a kind of a steady improvements there. So hopefully this is a really good fight for Kelsey, and it'll be no harm if it went the distance for her. And hopefully again she can show what she can do. She's also got a fantastic team behind her there in Unit 3 and Naas. And Pat, you've had plenty of dealings with Niall Barrett down through the years, and Gary Cully, Orla White all involved there. So I mean, she couldn't have a better backing and coaching system behind her there. So she has everything going for her, Kelsey. So yeah, I just hope she can get another victory and kind of keep on impressing. And I suppose with boxing as well, it's about catching the eye, because ultimately it's about catching the promoter's eye and selling tickets. So it's can she impress a promoter enough to believe that she's worthy of a place on these big cards that are coming up? And I know she was very close to being on some really big cards in the recent past, and there are more opportunities for boxing than ever before. And hopefully she will catch the right eye and keep going forward.
Yeah, well, we have an interview with Kelsey in this week's Kildare Nationalist, and later in the week on the Kildare Nationalist social media platforms, we will have a video of that particular interview. So we wish Kelsey and all the crew there the very best of luck in their fight on the Friday night against the Hungarian Milak Zemet in the National Stadium. Ger, the FAI Cup semi-finals last weekend turned out to be very good from a Kildare point of view, and now we will have plenty of Kildare action in the Sports Direct FAI Cup final in a couple of weeks' time.
We mightn't certainly from one point of view, Michael Noonan, who has crammed more into the last couple of weeks of his career, and the coming weeks than maybe some people would doing a full career, and he's still only 17 years of age. He obviously scored 2 goals in that FAI Cup semi-final win as Rovers, as expected, and got the win over Kerry. But he may be or may not be available now for that FAI Cup final, because possibly he could be on World Cup duty with the Irish Under-17 squad. He is at the moment in Cork with the Irish Under-21 squad, preparing for their game against Slovakia tomorrow. He could actually be playing for that Irish team while becoming a league winner as well, because Shamrock Rovers could clinch the league title against Shelbourne on tomorrow evening as well. So yeah, it's all go for Michael at the moment. But what a player, what a real talent, and his ceiling is immense. He actually was on a call today with Jim Crawford talking about him and Cathal McCarthy, who'll be involved with that Irish Under-21 team tomorrow as well. And he was full of praise for both. But yeah, Michael at the moment is just his star is shining and his stock is rising, and a supreme talent. And just a pity that things are colliding, and he maybe possibly won't be able to play in that FAI Cup final, although that's not quite confirmed yet. But yeah, on the other side of it then, Cork City, what an incredible result for them. And Rory Feely, of course, part of that team. He's back in the FAI Cup final for the second time. He played and scored for Bohemians against St. Pat's, I think, in 2021. And was part of that Cork City side that produced a stunning upset. I don't think anybody outside of Cork would have given them much of a chance, given that they are staring into the abyss in terms of relegation, and that could be confirmed, I think, the next week or two, certainly before the cup final. But they turned St. Pat's over, got a 3-0 win. Rory helped them keep a clean sheet, and it was a great weekend for the Feelies as well, obviously, with Kevin down in a tie. And just to mention Mother Mary as well, who was just beside us in the press box. She covered acres of ground in the last 5 or 10 minutes of that championship semi-final when Saracens were coming storming back against the tie. So in the end, I'm sure she was absolutely delighted with the performance of her 2 boys over the weekend. And Rory can look forward to another day out at the Aviva Stadium there in early November.
That's right, and that could be a good night on Friday night as well for another Kildare man, the Kilcock man, Kieran Kilduff, as manager of Dundalk. They could clinch the First Division title on Friday night, as far as I know.
Yeah, that'd be back-to-back league titles, I think, for Kieran, wouldn't it? Because he was
right.
manager of Home Women before he departed them. He obviously won that league last year and kind of kick-started their success that has seen them kind of go on to another league title and success in Europe this year. So, yeah, he's done very well. Obviously, a former player with Dundalk, played at a very high level, and particularly on that great team with Stephen Kenny when he was managing when they got to the group stages of the Europa League, and got a couple of famous goals along the way there as well, and played for Kildare County back in the day too, Kieran Kilduff. Yeah, so he's doing very well as a young manager.
I think he was he was involved in the management of Maynooth University team when they won the FAI Intermediate Cup as well, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I think so. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And just when you mentioned the manager, I should of course mention Ger Nash as well. Of course, he was manager of that sport.
Comfy man.
And they're owned by a Kildare man who was getting a bit of stick there with Usher as well. It was, I think, a funny from a Kildare point of view, banner that was up there with the Cork City fans who were protesting against his ownership. But I think that banner maybe was put away after their victory. And even though they are going to be relegated, that they have the potential now to be in Europe as well next year for Cork and there with Usher and Ger Nash and all involved there. So, yeah, strange couple of weeks for them.
Yeah, sticking in the League Club area, of course, it wasn't the best of starts for the basketball players up there. Liffey Celtics, heavy defeat for them and a surprising one.
Yeah, sorry, Pat, just before we leave soccer, can we just mention Clonmullion as well? Sorry, because
that's right, of course, yes.
Mums and Cup. Yes, absolutely, and Clonmullion compete at Lumpton Cup League, the double as well, because they'd won the league already, 2-1 win over Kildare Town. I think I wrote last year that after their victory in penalties, or after penalties against Clare United, that this Clonmullion side maybe is the best that the KDFL has ever seen, because although some other teams down through the years, and I can see Tommy bristling away there, the likes of Casavilla and Kildare Town and Kyle Dove have had their periods of dominance in the Kildare League. I think this kind of sustained success that Clonmullion have had, it's built on success now, because they were, aside from a tie, obviously based in the tie, but they're now attracting players in from outside the county and all over the county as well. So they have plenty of kind of outsiders coming in to join in with success, but it's a kind of a trophy winning machine that they built up down there. And I suppose the next step for them would be to win a Leinster Cup if they could. It's difficult for Kildare sides, because obviously the season kind of ends now for Clonmullion in terms of their domestic Kildare season. So going in against sides who are playing regular league games in the Leinster Cups, it's something that no Kildare side has been able to manage. But if anybody will, Clonmullion will be able to do it. So we look forward to see that. But I mentioned for Kildare Town too, because they made a real fight of it after conceding 2 early goals. They've had a fantastic season. They've won the Premier Division and the first year under Fergal Finn there. They're back up to the top flight next year. So it's the kind of coming of reawakening of Kildare Town after a couple of years in the doldrums, and they really are back to a side who can compete with the best.
Yes, indeed. And we were talking about basketball then, of course, as well.
Yes.
And that's not the best starts for Liffey Celtics.
No. They were given a difficult kind of opening game against last year's champions, Leicester, so it was always going to be a tough test for them starting out. As you just were saying there as well, a new manager. And I suppose that the thing with the basketball as well is that there's a turnover of the American players as well. So maybe it'll just take a little bit of time. They've got two very highly rated Americans who've come in to play with them this year. So perhaps it's just going to take a little bit of time, but it certainly was as difficult a game as they could have wished for. It was a heavy defeat in the end. Leicester winning by 89 points to 62. So Liffey Celtics are on the road this week down in Waterford against Waterford Wildcats and looking to get their first win of the very early new season.
Yeah, usually they have a good game against Waterford, and wish them the very best of luck. Not the best of starts, of course, for Naas Rugby either. They're still looking for their first win, as far as I know. They had a home defeat last week.
Yeah, that's right. They had an opening round defeat up in Belfast against Estonians, and then this week, they went down against Old Wesley. And again, they're kind of a lot of new players. It's a huge turnover of players for Naas. So again, it might just take a bit of time for them to kind of settle in. It's a pretty cutthroat division, though, in that AIL Division 1B. So they probably won't have too many games to kind of feel their way into it. They'll look to get a win on the board pretty quickly. They certainly won't want that losing run to carry on much further, but still very, very early days in that season, only 2 games in.
Yeah, indeed. And racing this week on a Saturday and Sunday. I think it's the final 2 meetings of the year is at Naas Racecourse. Always a good day out, and let's hope that everybody enjoys that one. The weather's going to be good. So then, of course, Ger, I don't know whether you were down in Willie Mullins yesterday or the day before, whatever it was on, but he looks to be really looking forward to the new season as well. And of course, he could have the Clane man back with him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I was actually over in England yesterday, so I didn't get to have my biannual trip down to get the tour of the Willie Mullins yard, but it's an incredible setup down there. It's a great opportunity that we get every twice a couple of years, twice a year, I should say, to go down there. They normally have a kind of a pre-season tour around this side, and then around the Cheltenham time as well. So yeah, no, it is an incredible setup down there. But yeah, from a Kildare point of view and the jump racing, obviously Barry Connell is already lining up a couple of his runners who were very successful in Cheltenham last year, Marine National and William Money. So they're two horses to look out. And he actually had Marine National around Nurney GAA Club after the success of the Cheltenham race or Cheltenham Festival last year. So he's aiming for success again with him this year. So they're definitely two local horses to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. There, Ger, told you, lads and ladies, Ger knows everything about sport, and he writes every week in the Kildare. Lads, before we finish off, all the proposed rule changes put forward by the FRC and that have been used in the last year or so, all passed at the Special Congress last Friday. Were you surprised at that, Richard?
Not entirely. I don't think there was a lot of debate about them over recent weeks and months. So, maybe the club season intervened a little bit, and it was good timing on the part of the FRC to get those through at this point. So, no, not entirely surprised.
And there was a comment or two, Tommy, about the possibility of the GAA looking at the streaming services that are out there, and that maybe they're not to the benefit of the GAA in its totality. A lot of people wouldn't be happy with that, I'd say.
No, I think most people wouldn't be happy with that at all. It just seems to be the last few years that the streaming organisations have, taken the initiative and they've gone forward. So there's people like, obviously, the ones we know, Clubber, Stream Sport. Then there's individual counties as well, like Armagh, Mayo. These people have their own in-county streaming services. And I mean, they're showcasing the game. Mm-hmm. They're showcasing the club game to both their people inside the county, the people outside the county. They're making
outside the country as well. Outside
the country, of course, and they're making revenue from it that's benefiting the county. From obviously different areas. But then you have like people like Clubber. They're the ones who took the initiative. They went and they did it. We'll stream 80 games this weekend. We'll show the Leitrim Junior C final because people might actually want to watch it. There might be 3 lads at home want to watch it, but they're still doing it. And now it seems like they're going to get punished for it because, oh look, there's a big pie that Clubber and these guys are getting all the slices of. Why aren't we getting anything out of this? I think it's cat, and it's not unexpected as well, Pat, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, there's a knock-on as well. There's a knock-on of the current of the Clubber thing, if you like, which is the likes of these podcasts. I think like we have so much more content and things to talk about because we can see every intermediate and senior game. We don't see everyone, but there's a lot more you can talk about, and that in itself fuels the whole interest, I would hope, in the game in the counties. So but this all seems to be back to the GAA have done a deal with TG Cahir, and TG Cahir perhaps are not getting the games that the pick of the games that they would like, or at least maybe not enough of them. I don't know what the issue is there.
Well, it seems like TG Cahir trump the likes of Clubber and that, because you see it the weekend. TG Cahir were like, we want Naas celebrate, so Clubber doesn't get it. So it seems like if TG Cahir want to cover all these games, then go get them and put the money and put the resources into them. The likes of the streaming services are doing. They're the ones hiring guys from all over the country. All the commentators, the camera operators, the cameras, they're doing this and they're investing in it. How hard have the likes of Kildare GAA and Laois GAA worked to get to work with Clubber, like to get something like that within the county, only for people kind of sitting back that haven't taken the initiative to suddenly turn around and say, oh, hang on now, this looks quite good. Actually, maybe I'll jump in there and have a little say on it and maybe put a stop to this because the revenue isn't going in the right direction.
Well, it's one for further.
Sorry, Pat, there was an article as well by John Fogarty in the Examiner as well that kind of suggested, or more than suggested, that it's down to maybe some of the commercial dealings as well, that because Clubber are backed by Aviva and they would be direct, I suppose, competitors with their business with Allianz, who obviously sponsor a huge amount for the GAA as well. So there's probably more to it than just kind of meets the eye as well, in terms of who's struggling. And then there's obviously some counties who have done better deals with their streaming partners than other counties, and some counties maybe have undersold their deals as well. So I think that article by John Fogarty didn't name the county, but suggested it was a Munster county who have kind of had raised eyebrows around the country with their kind of the paucity of their deals when compared to others. So there's probably a lot going on with that.
Anyway, that's something for further discussion. We've packed program put in the can again, and really have a really packed program next week. Might even get some interviews from some of the participating teams in the county finals. That's the intermediate county final and the senior county final. They're on next weekend, but of course it's the hurling final this weekend. That'll be live on Clubber. It'll be on KFM as well, and you can read all about it in the Kildare Nationalist next week. That's all, lads, for this week, is it? We have nothing else to say. I think we've worked it out, we've talked it out, and I think it's a case of we have nothing else to say. So let's say our thanks to Ger McNally, to Richard Commins, and to Tommy O'Connell. Indeed, we have to say big thank you to Tommy, because he went out and did his first interview live, and we will have that on the podcast. You heard it earlier in the podcast, of course. And I'm Pat Costello. Good luck to everybody playing and watching this weekend. Thank you very much for listening.